Hello everyone, welcome to my new video. This is again on training document understanding machine learning models through data manager. So I know this has been a long awaited video after the document understanding series that I did. So why I got delayed is actually because data manager was in side approval. Um, but now since it is available in the trial, I thought this is the best time to support you guys with this requirement. So, training these models, we have to do that through AI Center and through a tool called Data Manager that comes in as a part of AI Center now. So, there are different ways to train the models. So let's get to the AI Center so that I can show you how to do each and every. Okay, so we are in AI Center now. There is a newly created project. So if you go to ML packages under out of the box packages and under document understanding, we see different models created for invoices, purchase orders, receipts, and so on. So these models are actually pre-trained, as we know, and these models have their own fields that we can easily deploy and use to read our documents. And on the other hand, this document understanding model, which is a generic one, which we can also retrain, but compared to the invoice and purchase order models, the document understanding model over here do not have any predefined fields. So if we are using this model, we need to train it from scratch. So as of today's video, I will focus on not on this, but I will focus on how to train a model, the invoice model. So by doing this, we will also get an idea how to apply that same concept to train a document understanding model, which is this one, which can be applied to train for any kind of document because this is a generic model that we can use on different kind of other documents. Okay, so for the time being, let's focus on the invoice model. So the concept is the same always, but there are different ways. First thing is using the data manager to do the initial training and then using the train extractor scope in the workflow itself to generate the training or the human validated results to do the training much more easily. That is a part of another video. So in this one, we'll focus on how to do the initial training on these models. Okay. So I'm going to use this invoice model as of now. You can see there are different versions. I'm using the latest. For the name, I will just say invoices. I'm not going to change any of these things. So as you know, this is pre-trained and it has its own fields. We can just deploy it as ML skill and use it. It is already trained up to a certain extent. But I'm going to show you how to improve this through the data management. Okay, so once we have the package here, how can we figure out what are the fields that this model has? So to do that, we can go to this link under docs.uipath.com, configure data manager. And if you scroll down, here we have some links to download the schema for these models. So I have already downloaded this one for invoices because we are using the invoice. You can also download, and once you download and export it, uh, you download it and export, you will see something. Download it. Drag this. We have a split file and also a JSON file. So if we open this one, you can see all the available fields for that model, including the data type and a couple of other properties that will come in handy when we are using the data manager. So we'll get back to this after we create the model. Coming back here, now since we created the package, I'm going to go for ML skills and create a new skill. Yes, going to use the package and no settings again. So this major version and the minor version was actually coming from the package itself. This is the only version that's available. So for the time being, I will keep this auto enable, auto update thing disabled, and we'll cover that in a separate video. And this option, undeploy skill after period of inactivity, I will keep it default 1 week. So it will automatically undeploy this if this model is inactive for 1 week. That's the idea. Okay. So while this deploys, now we can focus on a couple of other things. Yeah. So for us to use the data manager, we need to go to this data labeling. And before creating the labeling session, for us to store the data that we might need to put in into this labeling session or that is exported from this labeling session, we need to have a data set created. So let's go to data sets and create a new data set. I will name it training and click create. So now we have a data set which is empty. And now I'm going to go to data labeling and I'm going to create the first labeling session for us. In here, let's say labeling. And we need to choose a data set. That's why I created one earlier. If you did not create, you can create it from here itself. Since we have already done that, we can click on this and click on create. Okay, so now you can see the data labeling session is being deployed and status is now available. So this is where we can access the data manager. So in the meantime, we'll just have a peek into ML skills just to see how this is going. So it's still being deployed. That's fine. So in the meantime, we'll go to data labeling, but it's good if you can stay until this is deployed. So I'm going to pause the video for a few seconds until this deploys so that we can have a fresh look into data manager and see the fields that we have. Okay, so now you can see that model has been deployed successfully and the status is available. So before getting into data labeling, let's just have a quick look in the workflow itself. So here I have created a simple workflow to read some documents that's available in this folder, which is right over here. We have 10 documents. I'm getting all that into an array and I'm making the taxonomy. So going into the taxonomy, for this case, I'm expecting these fields. I have the invoice number, date, due date, and so on, along with few additional line items. So if you are new to this, and if you are not sure how to create the taxonomy, I do recommend to go through the document understanding video series that gives you a very detailed idea about how to do this. For the time being, we have created this. So this gives you an idea what we are trying to do, training. And then I'm using a for each to loop through the documents, and I'm doing the digitization along with UiPath document OCR. And here I have the data extraction. So if someone is wondering why we don't have the classification, I'm not doing the classification because for this particular scenario, we are only focused on invoices. We don't have multiple types. So that's why I'm using the data extraction scope right after digitizing. And since we don't have the classification, how we are going to say that these are invoices by this document type ID. And from where to take this is actually coming from the taxonomy. If I click on here, you can find the document type ID. You can copy that and put it here. So I have configured the variables already. The thing I haven't done is adding the extractor here. So in our case, we have the machine learning model. So let's add the machine learning extractor. So you can see once that is added, it asks for the ML skill. To do this, you need to have the studio connected to your orchestrator. Once that is connected, you can easily configure this thing. So in my case, it's already connected, and I'm just clicking on this refresh button. Then we will see the model that we created earlier. I'm going to select that and provide the API key, and having this enabled update activity, I'm going to click on get capabilities. By doing this, we will be getting the fields that our machine learning model can extract. Okay, that is done. And let's go to configure extractors. And right here in this configuration window, what you see on the left side is the fields that are coming from the taxonomy, the fields that we created. On the right hand side, you can see a couple of drop downs, and these are coming from the machine learning model. By clicking on that get capabilities, what you did was you got all these values from the model. So in the initial configuration, let's map these before going further. I'm going to map the invoice number to invoice number, invoice date to date, due date, billing address, shipping address. So, so this is a separate table, so we need to click items. Then it shows the values that you can get for this rate. Quantity, description, unit price, and line amount. Okay, these are the fields that our model will extract. Right, why I did that is actually to show you what are the fields that we are focusing on training today. So you can see, though we are focused on a very limited number of fields right over here, the model is actually capable of extracting more than that. But in our scenario, we will only train for a specific set of fields as of today. Okay, now we can get back to AI Center. And we earlier created the data labeling session, now available. So I'm going to go into this labeling session. So now we are in the data manager. So the initial look of the data manager will be similar to this. Just to give you an idea, we have a couple of options here. So we'll be not covering all the things today, but we'll cover some of the things. So what you see over here will be your option to navigate through multiple documents. On this big area, you will see the document, and here you can see a couple of fields, the regular fields and the column field. So we'll see what these fields are. So how to configure this? We need to do a bit of configuration here. What is it? It is easy. You just need to follow these steps. So on the first thing, you just need to configure those here. So let's click on settings panel. So by default, it is providing us with the UiPath document tab, but it is also capable of using a couple of other OCR engines. So in our case, this is the easiest. Let's do that. So we are using the document OCR and the OCR URL available here. The OCR key is actually our document understanding API key, which you can get from the admin page. In my case, I have already done it, and let's copy it. Make sure. I'll go back to admin, and I'm going to licensing. And over here, we see the API key. Going into AI Center, the labeling. All right. In settings panel, have this. I'm going to press the AR key and click on save. You're not going to do anything more. Clicking on save will configure the OCR engine for us. And in a while, you will see a small tick here that says that has been done. Yeah, now it is visible. So the next step is to create the regular fields. So when you're saying regular fields, these are the fields that we are extracting through the taxonomy. And if you go back to taxonomy, the fields that we see here, the direct fields, these are the regular fields. And what you see under line item are the column fields because these are coming inside a grid. Okay, having that in mind, let's get to creating the fields. So now remember, we are only focused on extracting a couple of fields. So in our case, you'll be focusing on these. This one. So you can see each of these are mapped to a specific uh, field in the document model. So let me get this studio onto the other side of the screen so I can show you the data manager while I can see the fields that we need to extract. Okay. Now the main thing to remember here is when you are creating these regular fields, you are supposed to use the same field name that we see in the machine learning model. How to know that is actually by going through that schema file, the one we downloaded. So if we open this, here you can see the field name along with its data type and a couple of other properties. So, so over here, let's create our first field. The first one is we need to create the invoice number. So for invoice number, it is mapped to a field called dash number. We need to use that. So let's copy this one invoice number. Over here, I'm clicking on regular fields and I'm pasting that name and clicking OK. Now here comes the additional property. Here we see the content type, which is the data type, and couple of other properties. So in our case, if we go back to that JSON file, you can see the type is ID dash number. So this is the data type. Let's find that in the content type. So why we are doing it this way is because we are trying to train for an existing model. If you are doing this for a totally new model, you can have your own type. But that we will cover in another part of the video series. So in this one, we need to map it to the existing structure and the configuration that they have done. So I'm using the ID now. The remaining things I will just keep as it is and click on save. Now you can see the regular field. So likewise, we need to create the other fields. The next one is invoice date. Clicking on regular field again, going to the JSON file. The invoice date is actually captured by this date. And I'm copying that date. The data type is date. And I'm not changing anything here. Clicking on save. The next one is due date. So let's find it over here. Due date. It's here. Need to use the same name. Otherwise, the model will not know to what fields you are referring to. And clicking on regular fields, due date, a date, and clicking on save. And then comes the billing address. That is over here, billing dash ADDR. And now you can see we have a couple of other properties called multi-line, which is set to true. So this multi-line means the data can be there in the invoice in multiple lines. As you know, addresses can span across multiple lines. So we need to do that configuration. In regular fields, billing address, string, and we need to enable multi-line. And just click on save. The next one is the shipping address, which is right over here. The same configuration. Why I have all these fields is actually to show you how to do this configuration. So bear with me for this part. Next one is billing address. Sorry, it's the vendor address. Because we created the billing address earlier. And for that also, we need to get the multi-line true. Have those fields. And lastly, we have the total to hold the total amount of the invoice. And going down here, you can see the total, and that type is number, and it can also have a multi-line. I'm selecting total and number, multi-line, true, and save. So now we are done with the regular. Similarly, we need to do the same thing for columns. So let's look for the remaining fields: quantity, description, unit price, and lineup. For this one, I'm going to click on column fields. And let's find the quantity over here. And in here you see the quantity, which is under items, because that falls under line items. And the type is number, and there's another property, split items, which is set to true. So let's see what that is. I'm going to copy this quantity, type is number, and see this split items. Let's have a look at the description. So it says use field as a delimiter between line items or rows in table. You get the idea. On any line on which this field appears, it's considered to be a new line. Yeah, so there's a hint that says most commonly this is used in line amount field because that's usually in invoices, that's the last field in that grid. But in our case, this is um, already configured in model, so we have to use. I'm doing that and clicking save, and that will appear over here because these are column items. So let's quickly do that for the remaining ones. The next one is description, which is string, no additional properties. Description, string, tab, that is over here. And the next one is unit price. Fields, unit price, that is number, and split items is set to true. And the last column, the line amount. And for that as well, the number is the type and split items is set to true. Number, split items, set. Okay, so we have done the configuration over here. And now we are ready to get documents into this. So the next one over here, create classification. This we'll talk about this in another section, but I will just show you a glimpse of. So in this JSON file, there's a part called classification, and here you can have any classification that you need as per the currency, for example. So this we'll talk about later. For now, we can ignore this part. So we are coming to this particular step where we are going to import the document. So why we are doing this here again is actually because we are doing the initial train. And this is another way of actually doing it so that this same concept is applied when you're creating a model or creating a model for that generic type that you saw in the out of the box packages. In that case, you will not be looking into a JSON file to get these fields, but you will be creating your own. But this is how it is usually done. And one thing to make sure here is you can see for these specific fields, we are not adding spaces. For space, we are using a dash. So make sure you do the same thing as a base to have it as one word. So let's import some document. So how to do that is actually by clicking on this import. And in here, we can import in batches. So let's say this is the batch one. You can type anything. So there's an option called make this a test set. So in our case, we are trying to train the model. So we are not making this as a test set. So when this mod option is used, that also will cover in another step. Let's keep this simple. Okay, now here we can code the document. So here is my input files, and I'm going to drag all these files into this. It will take a couple of seconds to import all the documents. Now you can see it is saying it has 10 files. Now these are PDF. So, yes, and it will start processing and try to get all the documents. Yes. So you can see it's also looking into the OCR engine. This takes a couple of seconds. Wait until it's done. All right, so we have imported all 10 documents. And you might ask, why are we importing 10 documents? Can't we do that with one or two documents? No. So for us to train a model, we need to have at least 10 documents in data management. That's the minimal requirement. That's why I imported 10 documents. All right. So here we have the documents. You can see none of the fields are assigned with anything. And see the document? These highlighted text and numbers are the ones that OCR was captured. Through this option, you can navigate to multiple documents. And if you want to delete any document, by clicking on this, you can do that. So let's get to the first document. Okay, this is where we do the initial labeling. All right, so now let's try to add values to these fields. So you can see something over. For each and every field, there's a key assigned. So this key is actually a shortcut key. So in case we want to add a value to this invoice number, we need to highlight the value and just click on the shortcut key or press it so that it will add it to the field. Okay, so in this document, the invoice number is this one. So let me highlight. And I'm going to press the I key, the keyboard, and you can see it got assigned. So likewise, let's do for this field. The date is this one. So in this case, we have three things identified. I'm going to highlight all three and press on D. Due date, same thing, pressing on U. Now billing address is over here. For this document, this is the address. So I'm highlighting everything and pressing E. So you can see how easily it is getting added. And for this one, it's the shipping address, S, vendor address, this one, and the total. Total is right over here. Pressing on T. Okay, now we have done that. Then we come to the column fields, which is this section. So for quantity, here we have the value. Just as you did earlier, select the field and press on the shortcut Q, and it will add the value. The description comes next. Highlight everything, press E, and that is over here. Rate is the unit price, going to be N, and the line amount L. So we are done with this document. So this is how we label in data manager. So we can do this automatically as well through the workflow itself, through the validated data, but that is another video. In here, I'm trying to show you how to do this in data manager. Let's get to the second document. Okay, so this is a bit of a complicated one. Let's see. Invoice number, where is it? It's here. I, the date is right over here. D, do we have a due date? Yep, it's here. And U, billing address. We don't have a billing address. We'll go for shipping address. Is this one? Yes. So in this case, we don't have this value. So I'll tell you what will happen to those kind of fields. So let's first label this, whatever we have. Vendor address, we will select this one, P, and the total is P. Okay. Okay. So the next thing is adding values to these column items. So in the previous document, we simply did that by creating it in this way. But over here, in this one, here we see a different scenario. Here we see the description for each item is spanning across multiple. So in that case, we cannot do it that easily. So we need to do few additional things. So before adding the items to quantity description things, we need to group this entire line. So let's do that. So how to group it is actually by pressing on this key. So this is in documents, docs.uipath.com under table documents. Here there's option called group table row. So after you have labeled some fields, and only if some rows span multiple lines of text, then you may need to group this using this key. That's what we are trying to do. Let's go back. So remember this key. This is a slash. So I'm coming here and I'm going to say that this entire line belongs to a single group. Okay. I'm going to highlight this entire thing and pressing on that key, which is this one. I'm going to highlight it. Now you can see as soon as I press it, this entire thing got highlighted in green. This means this entire thing is a single row. Now let's add the values. Now the quantity. I'm going to only select on the quantity inside this group is 3 and press on Q. So it's getting added over here. And then the description. So for description, this particular portion. Highlighting that and pressing E. So you can see it got added the same line. Same thing goes for unit price, which is N, and the line amount is L. So let's do that for the remaining part. I need to highlight this entire thing with by pressing the special grouping key, and 4 goes to quantity. This is the second line. This part goes to description, N and L. So it's easy. Same thing goes here, right? Pressing on the special key. And here we have one as the quantity, this part as the description, N, L. So here we have the line. We are done with that. Okay, so this is how we label multiple lines. So let's get to the third document. We need to keep on doing this for all the documents. So I'll just show you this for a couple of documents, and the remaining part I will just do, so that you won't be too bored listening to me. Okay, so let's quickly do this one. Here we have a different scenario, so that's why I want to show it. So we have the invoice number, I, uh, E, that's the due date, Q, billing address. We have one, yeah. This is the billing address, which is shipping address, S, vendor address is this one. Total goes E. All right. So in this case, here you have a single line of description and multiple line of description. So can we do the same thing we did earlier? Yeah, actually for both lines we can. So let's do it. So here I'm going to show you how to group this thing. I'm going to highlight this entire row and I will press on that special key hash. So this entire line will get highlighted in green. And here goes the quantity, Q, price is the unit price, which is N and L. I'm highlighting this section and this goes to this one line. So quickly going to the second one, highlighting the entire row, grouping it, quantity goes as Q, the description to and the unit price and this is L. Okay, so that also we have done. Okay, so let me show you another special scenario which is in this one. So after this, I promise I won't bore you too much. I will do it and show it to you at the end. So let's quickly do this one. This is the invoice number. Where is it? It's I 8 due date, which is Q. Okay, so in this case, let's say we don't have the billing address and this is only the shipping address and see. So in my case, I don't want the value address to be added to this thing. So how can I remove that? I cannot select values individually just like we are able to do in the validation step. So in this case, what we can do is, so this is what I wanted to show you in this document. So in this case, we will highlight this entire section and I'm going to press S to add this thing to string address and you can see the value address is also there. I want to remove this. We can easily do that. Just select on it and by right clicking it you can see this has been assigned to shipping address. What I'm doing is selecting it and pressing my delete key and you can see it got updated automatically. This is how you remove unwanted stuff from your labeling. And you can do the same thing over here. See here it's a bit more complicated. So the address starts from here and it ends somewhere over here. So let's highlight this entire section. And I'm going to add this to E. And I'm going to remove this. You can see those are already added. Delete, delete. And I don't need the phone number. And that's it. You can see the updated one. Okay, so that's how we do the labeling. So let me do the remaining labeling offline and I'll start the video. I'll pause it here and I'll start it after completing the labeling stuff. So give me a couple of seconds. All right, so I have done the labeling for all the 10 documents. I have grouped all the lines, even for the single line ones. So let's now try to export this. How to do that is actually by clicking on this export button. All right, so since we have done all this, let's export. So make sure you need to have at least 10 documents to export. Right. Let's try to export. Now remember, when we created this data labeling session, it has its own data set. So whatever we export now, we'll go and save in the data set. We go to data set. As of now, this is something that it has created automatically to store some internal data when the session got created. So let's export it now. Export tagged data. Okay, so now exporting, you need to make sure you won't enter any capital or space values, just simple. I will say initial demo. And I want to extract all the labeled, select that and click on export. So you can also download this as when for now we'll just do the export. When exporting, you can see this flashing, and here we have a message that says the following fields are labeled in less than 10 each, which is the field billing address. Mark the fields as hidden or delete them or tag them in at least 10 documents. Yeah. So if we see, we marked all the documents, but this billing field, billing address, is not available in all the documents. That's why I mentioned that it needs to be there in at least 10 documents. So either we need to have at least 10 documents that has this value, or else if we want to export this for training with the current data set, what we can do is um, we need to hide this field. Hiding means go to edit and click on this hidden. Hide, you can see the description. Hide field when exporting dataset. Click that and click on save. That will apply for all the documents. And you can see this hidden mark. Okay, let's try to export again. Export. I mistakenly entered a capital. And labels, export. This time it should work. You can see it's flashing. Give it a couple of seconds. Yeah, so the flashing stopped. That means we have exported successfully. Going back to AI Center and let's refresh this data. Refreshing, and now you can see a folder called export. Inside this, here it is. Here is our export, initial export demo. So inside this one, you see the schema JSON, you see the split CSV that got created, and images contains all the files processed, and latest contains the JSON version of the file. Right. So this is what we need to train our model. So we created this through the data manager. Every single thing we labeled it through the data manager. So in case of when we are building models, I'm telling this time to time, just repeat myself so that you're on the same page. When we are creating models from scratch, even on that generic model, this is the way to do it. So we can train it initially based on some samples. Then you can do the training through the retraining activities. That we'll talk about later in another video. How to do that part. Again, data manage is involved, but we will not be labeling. We'll just be verifying. That's a topic for another video. So since we have the stuff over here, And let's now try to upgrade this. Let's train it. So we need to go to pipelines, create, and we need to do a full training run. Not a full pipeline run, we are doing a full training run, which is this option. And I'm going to select my current version using this. The minor version we have as and choosing the dataset. Now, this is the dataset that we created initially, but while we were doing the labeling, it created a couple of other additional folders inside. We are not interested in this internal. We only want to go inside this export, and this is what we are interested in. Initial export div, the one that we gave the name. We need to select that, and we'll have the auto retraining things false by default value for now. Talk about these things later in another video. And I'm going to click create while having the option run now. So this is going to create a training pipeline which will train our model. So this is packaging as of now. This is going to take some time. So let's have a break. Now I'll get back to you. This is coming. So I'm going to pause the video. Okay. So now you can see the model that we created. It has successfully uh, completed, and the previous version was 11.0. And if we go inside this, we'll go to MS Skills. If we go inside this one, we can now see the latest version, 11.1, which is the one we trained and created. So how to upgrade? As of now, you can see it's using the version 11.0 by default. So you can easily upgrade by clicking on this button over here. Just click on it. So you can see the current version is this, and new one will be this one. Just confirm. So again, this will take a couple of minutes just to complete. But after that, your workflow should be ready to work on the new and the trained model. So this is how you train your ML models using data manager. This is one way of doing it. So just to summarize, what we did is through data manager, we created the labels, we mapped everything, and we trained. So the other way to do this is instead of mapping all of these things manually, we can do that while the process runs. So through the validation part after extraction, those information can be captured and we can feed that information into data manager, and we will not be doing any labeling after that unless it's really needed. Uh, so that's the other way of doing it. So you capture it through your process itself and push it to the AI center and train your model. So that part we'll look at in the part 2 of the video. In this one, basically, this is what we covered. So this is purely focused on how we can use the data manager to label and train the models. Okay, so, and we tried this for invoices. In the second one, we will also look at the part where we can do the same thing for that generic model. So it's kind of the same concept, but if you remember, we went through the JSON file, but next time we'll be just creating our own field. Okay, so I hope this was a good informative one for you. I hope it's not boring. because we had to do a lot of labeling while you guys were watching. Anyway, um, so thank you for watching. Hope this was useful and uh, was helpful for you to understand how to do the labeling over here. Thanks again, and I'll see you in another video. Until then, take care.